So far, it's just me. It's just me. Yep. Oh, you know what? I've got to figure out participants. Yeah, I think I'll have to add people as they come, so I'll be on the lookout for that. Oh, yay. Oh. Hey, hi, Michael. Hi there, and hi, Jeff.
Hey, so I'm on the way to a meeting, so I'm in a car. So if you, just so you know.
That's okay. All righty, no problem. Yeah, I know you're always on your way somewhere, so you're busy. Lots of balls in the air.
I do too many.
Yeah, but you don't see it, but you don't drop them though. You're doing well.
My wife might think that's different. That is not necessarily the case.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there you go. I won't ask her then. I'll take your word. I'll take your word for it that they're all being handled. So hi there, Ed. So we're expecting Dave Menzies. We're not expecting Connor, but we do have a quorum, and thank you all. So I will call the meeting to order. Taking my notes here. Okay, and I will share my screen so we can go down through a couple of things. The one is I just sent the agenda. I know things are always hot off the press, and I'm always hopeful that we'll get them sooner. But the first thing, if we can adopt the agenda, and I'll read off what's on the agenda, and hopefully we can adopt it. So I was going to go through status of, we have the water supply protection law, status of that, status of the telecommunications law, and status of the oversight task force, scenic overlay, and really what areas to address next. I did send minutes out just now, a few minutes ago, for there are 5 meetings where I still need to do minutes, but since then I've been keeping up with minutes, and minutes have been sent to everybody from April 26th through July 26th. We haven't met together, us, since July 26th. We've had various things going on, but it just seemed to me it's time. We have, the telecommunications law is moving a little slowly, but it's moving. The water course law is moving a little slowly, but it's moving. And then the Housing Oversight Task Force is still having a lot of meetings and doing a lot of great work. So that's moving. Scenic overlay, the ball is in Connor's court, really, and he's not on this call. He's had a lot going on, but we may still have things we want to work on next. So that's really the agenda, is just running through status of different things and what do we want to do at this point in time. So with that being the agenda, do I have a motion to adopt the agenda? We have a silent bunch. I'll make a motion to adopt the agenda. Do I have a second to adopt the agenda?
I'll second it.
Yay, thank you, Jeff. All in favor of adopting the agenda, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, yay, adopted. Yay, okay. So as we go down through here, at some point, getting back to the minutes, at some point I'll send an email that has all of them in it and say, hey, now everybody, please adopt them so that we can have them adopted and put on the website. But in any event, we're all focused on a lot of other things right now. The status of the laws in progress, the water supply protection, to let everybody know where that is Bill McKenna gave some recommended updates. He's not really changing wording, but is changing, rearranging, because when you have a law, you've got the part of here's what's the description of why you have the law, but the actual words that go in the law are in there. So that's really the main thing, is just a rearranging, but not rewording. There's not very much at all that would be reworded. So that's on my plate, and I should have it. Hi, David, is that you?
Yeah, that's me. I had been in on the phone. I couldn't seem to get in.
Yeah,
Otherwise.
okay. Well, thank you for joining. So we're going through the status right now of the different laws. So in any event, so where we are with the water supply protection law again is I'm making updates. I have a day clear. It's kind of clear tomorrow. I have about 4 hours of meetings, but that leaves me the rest of the day clear to actually complete doing the updates of what Bill McKenna is recommending. I'll get that sent out to people. But then the other thing is we have at this point, we'll call it competing maps. Ed Sanders did send the map that came out of the task force that actually brought us this proposed law, and it was provided by Steve Winkley, and I think is a perfect match for the overlay district. Although there's, I need to talk with each of my colleagues on the town board to get a consensus. One person says, oh, Ken Panza came to a town board meeting and proposed a map that was created by the Natural Resources Inventory team. And so he's proposed that. In my view, that map does everything for everybody. And I think it's confusing for this purpose. It's a great map for other purposes. It's a wonderful map. But I think that the one that Steve Winkley put together is right on. It matches the overlay district. There's no confusion about what's in and what's out. So I'm still talking to my colleagues. And Ed, I cut you off. Your comments, Ed?
Oh, no, there's nothing wrong with Ken Panza's map. It's just too excessive and doesn't bring the property owner to a map that he or she can really look at and determine if their property is in the watershed protection overlay district.
Right.
The Winkley map is sandwiched in the middle of Ken Panza's overlay of 3 or 4 maps. So if Panza's map is accepted, I think McKenna is apparently biased toward Ken's map. If Ken's map is kept, then there needs to be text rewritten for the law. And I don't know if Panza has the chops to do that kind of legal writing, but somebody would have to restructure the law just a bit to call on people who have property in the watershed protection overlay to look at the red map with the property boundaries all indicated. And to draw their conclusions, whether they're in the watershed overlay district or not, by looking at that red map.
Right. So we'll cross that bridge when we come to it, because by that I mean there is one town board member who thinks we should be using the NR. We'll call it, instead of calling it Ed's map and Gen's map, we'll call it the Steve Winkley map and the NRI map. So yes, one member of the board thinks that using the NRI map is the way to go. One member of the board besides me thinks that using the Winkley map is the way to go. And I'm going to be talking with the other 2 members. And it made sense to me to actually get the law update so I can take the final copy of the law with me when I talk to the other 2 board members. It's a quorum of 3 that'll decide. And I think that you look at the Winkley map and you know right away, here's which properties are in or out. You look at the other map, which is like the entire, not the entire town, but a lot of the town. It kind of isn't focused on the needs of this overlay district, in my opinion. It's an excellent map. It is a totally excellent map, but we have a specific purpose, and that is to help people know what properties are in and out of this overlay district. And I think the Winkley map, that's all it does. You got just that area of Woodstock on the map, not the whole, not bigger areas of Woodstock, just that. And it's even got the property indicators, the SBL, the section block lot numbers, and you're either in the red part or you're in the white part, and it's totally, it totally tells you what you need to know if you're in the district. So I'm totally sold on the Steve Winkley map, and I haven't finished making my rounds to the other, but we'll see. So anyway, that I just want to let everybody know where that is. Regarding, and then we'll move it once the board agrees once we have a quorum of the board saying which map to go with, then we'll be continuing through the law. The what's important about the maps is the water protection is not just where the wellhead is today. The water protection is also under the Cuomo, because it was determined by a group of people, including Jerry Washington, that that under the Cuomo is a potential aquifer, and so that needs to be protected as well. So the map that I will agree that we need to use does include both of those areas. And everybody knows by now that Jerry has passed, and it's a huge loss to Woodstock, and as an understatement, because he took a lot of knowledge with him. But one of the things that was even in his obituary was stating that he was one of the people that discovered that there was a potential aquifer for Woodstock under the Cuomo. So protecting that, I believe, is totally important, as well as the wellhead area. So anyway, any other questions or comments about the status of the water supply protection law?
Well, one thing, as long as we're talking about it, Bill McKenna doesn't contemplate actual language changes or sentence changes, does he?
I'll send it to you when I have it right here. It's really mostly, and I'll review it as soon as I get it done. There's not much. It's really mostly the purposes. Like some things he thought belonged in the purpose rather than in the section for the law itself, because the history of where it came from belongs in the purpose for the law, not in the actual wording changes. So it's things like that. And if there's, if I will certainly let you know. I'll get with you when I finish doing this, and let you know what exactly changed.
All right.
But it's mostly that kind of thing.
That's good to know.
So, yep. So, okay. For the regulating wireless, where that stands right now is that's the telecommunications law. It's been with Andrew Campanelli for quite a while. And Andrew Campanelli said he had reviewed it, and he sent an email saying, well, he's reviewed it. He was complimentary to the structure of it, which is good news, because I wasn't looking for a whole rewrite. And so he's complimentary to the structure of it. But he said as he adds things, that there were about 6 areas where he'd like the town board to weigh in on, do you want me to add it this way or that way? And instead of writing up the verbiage, and guessing what the town board wanted to do, for example, do you want to have the building inspector, do you want to add to their responsibilities, this or that? Well, the town board needs to decide, do we want to add things to the building inspector's responsibilities? He's not going to guess for us and write the law unless he knows, do we want to do this or not? So there are things that legitimately the town board ought to weigh in on. And so we said, hey, the town board needs to weigh in on some things. I sent an email back saying, can you please write down the topics? And then the idea is that Andrew Campanelli, Bill McKenna, and I could have a meeting, because we're the ones most focused on this of the board, and propose some decisions, and we can take those back to the rest of the board. But instead of having another big meeting where, if you have a quorum, then it's all in, the open meeting, and then it has to be a town board meeting, and it winds up being a work session rather than most town board meetings. The decisions tend to get made elsewhere, and then the town board meeting is moving forward with decisions. A lot of the research, et cetera, is done outside the meeting. So that's the hope, is to get Andrew Campanelli to tell us what are these decisions you need made. We'll work it as a town board in our own way, and then we'll give him the answer, and then he'll make his updates. But I asked him a month ago can you give us this email with what these areas are? I've called him twice saying, we're still hoping for this. And he hasn't gotten on the phone with me to tell me where it is. So that's where we are, as I'm prodding him. So and I know that it's going to take 2 weeks. 2 weeks that will be needed once we get his final update, but we're kind of at a previous step right now.
Okay, well, so he's accepted the format that we submitted the draft law. He has a number of changes and a bunch of decisions that he wants the town board to make regarding assigning people to certain tasks to facilitate the telecommunications law? And do we want to dump that on the zoning enforcement officer, or do they want to pick a new type of officer to handle this? I mean, but it would help if he could be nudged once a week to get it in, because
Right.
2 members of the current town board who are been following this are going to be leaving in January. So,
Correct.
so we should get this, you could inform him that, and we'd like to deal with it this year. I mean, I've been working on this now for over 2 years.
Right. Yeah, good point. Good, excellent point. Excellent point. So yeah, I'll give him some more nudges. That sounds like a good plan. The other thing that he mentioned the last time I did talk to him, which was several weeks ago, is that this is kind of a changing landscape from the standpoint as different court cases get handled and decisions come down. Sometimes decisions from court cases that are happening now can actually alter slightly what he may be recommending, because if somebody won a court case here, then now we have more ground to go this way. And so, but that's not the main thing holding us up. The main thing holding us up is he wanted some answers from the town board. And until he sends the email with what are these topics, I don't even know what all the topics are, but one of them does have to do with, are you going to give the building inspector this responsibility? So, but until I see his email about what the topics are where he needs a decision, I don't know what all of them are. So nudging, I agree with you, Ed, nudging him weekly sounds like is a very smart idea. So I will continue to do that. And I've been nudging him, but I may have, Bill McKenna, the supervisor, nudge him. I may call on other people to nudge him. So we'll see how we do on that. So, okay. The next item, the next topic, Housing Oversight Task Force. Actually, well, Michael is on that, and he's on that really because he's ZBA. So we have two kind of members of our ZRC on it, which is Jeff and me. And even though Michael is on it, he's really representing the ZBA. So there are 3 of us over in those task force meetings. They do happen twice a week. We're not yet at a point where we have documents to share, but there will be documents to share, because before they go out to the masses, they'll go out to the committees who really want to know what's going on. So as soon as we get documentation to share, we'll be doing that. But I think we're having some good momentum there. So, and we'll share as soon as we can. So that's what's going on with that. We had thought we could make some progress with scenic overlay. I know that Ed had said in a previous meeting, he's given some information to Connor, and Connor has not been able to be on these meetings for we haven't had meetings for a while, but since I've started to try to get him going again, Connor has not been available for various and very valid reasons. So in any event, that's going on. The question that I have, while a lot of these things are kind of moving at their own pace in their own way, what do we as a committee want to do? What areas should we address now? And I do have another document up to share, and that is of the 13 areas that we did have, and I had notes from really a long time ago. Well, the housing we know is happening with the Housing Oversight Task Force. We had natural resources aquifer is happening with the law that we have, as we know. We know that the cell tower telecommunications and telecommunications, 2 of the items, have a law that's being worked. So the other thing, the thing that I thought would be the easiest thing to pick up and start working with next, but only if everybody agrees that we should pick up something. One option is to just say, hey, we have enough balls in the air, let them settle further, which we've been doing. And I feel like we could get more done than just waiting. So that's kind of my thought. But again, I need to know what you all want to do, because if we're going to proceed, we need to do it together. It seems to me that one thing that we could pick up would be the Hamlet area, because the planning board had worked together to put together a proposed law. And the idea is then that, do we as the zoning revision committee agree that this law should become law? Do we recommend changes to it? And I had actually sent it out to everybody probably a year and a half ago, and then we had other things take priority. But I could find my email, resend it, and we could try to have a work session or more than one work session on seeing what we think about that law. Does it need changes? Do we like it as it, does it fit with other laws that we're doing?
Well, who wrote it?
The planning board wrote it.
Well, what does that mean? Does that mean Matthew Rudikoff, or who is it that actually
Well,
wrote it?
I was actually on the planning board when it was being written. Things probably happened to it after that. But when I was on the planning board, Matt Rudikoff did a lot of the writing. And then there were people who were vocal on the planning board, had thoughts that went into it. But Matt Rudikoff did a lot of the writing of it.
And what does it deal with mainly? Is it, new rules for the Hamlet Preservation District, or?
Well, it's the NC and the LI. It kind of adjusts what you can and can't do in the neighborhood commercial and the light industrial.
Oh, in other words, it's rezoning those two parcels in Bearsville. Yeah, well,
It's looking at what they can do and can't do. Right. So a refinement of.
oh, it's opening up the commercial development of Bearsville. And there are two main property owners that will experience economic gain from this change. There's only two. So we need to discuss it.
Sure. So are we, if I were to send it out to everybody, might we be able to spend our next meeting talking about it? And that way we could be moving something forward while we're waiting for everything else to happen.
Well, we can talk about it.
Does anybody have any disagreement about talking about it? If I send it out and you have 2 weeks to look at, because you're not going to get the Campanelli thing. I know the next meeting won't be looking at Andrew Campanelli's updates because we're still he hasn't finished his updates yet. And I know it's going to take people 2 weeks of reviewing before we can look at it, and we don't have them yet. So I think that we could spend our next meeting talking about it. The other thing, a guest I would like to add onto the agenda is Grace Murphy and Ram, very long last name, begins with an R, are both on the Complete Streets Committee. And I would be, at some point, they would like to come on and talk with us about Complete Streets concerns, so that as we do whatever zoning revisions that we do, we're considering complete streets. So at some point, I would like to invite them to join one of our calls. But it made sense to kind of get ourselves kind of back moving again before I invited them.
But
so,
is there a document they've created about streets?
Well, there is a document. They made a presentation to the town board about focus areas for complete streets. So I could ask them to present that to the zoning revision committee, and very likely that's what they would plan to do.
Well, just give us the text and see what so we can get I have no idea what complete streets means. So
Okay.
if we could get a document that overall explains what they're talking about, then we can start making informed opinions.
Okay, well, they would like to come and present. I can get the document that they shared at the town board meeting, and that'll whet your appetite, so to speak. I think that, well, first of all, out of courtesy, because they have asked to come, and because I think Complete Streets is important, and I'm also the town board liaison to the Complete Streets Committee. So I think starting with them sharing their document to take a preview look at makes a lot of sense. What I will say about Complete Streets is a Complete Streets focus. When a town has a complete streets focus, what they're doing is they are looking at everything that has to do with streets. They're looking at how good are the streets for pedestrians that want to use it? How good are streets for the bicyclists that want to use it? How good are the streets for parking? How good are the streets for safety in general for motorists? How good are the streets for the handicap? So when you look at complete streets, the word complete is what it's all about. Is you're looking at the streets that you have and you want to make sure that your streets are serving the needs of everybody who is going to want to use the streets. So that's what Complete Streets is all about. But I'm happy to ask for documentation and email it to everybody so you can have a preview. And would you rather have that preview before you decide whether or not you'd like them to come in and talk?
No,
Or,
I have no objection to them coming in. They're welcome to come in. It's just that whatever we can know. Now that you've explained what Complete Streets seems to mean, that it's a perfectly legitimate concern. So how you codify that, though, in a zoning law is the problem.
right. And I think it would be things like, where all do you want sidewalks? And making sure it's clear who is responsible for the sidewalk, which might already be in the law somewhere, but sidewalks is one thing. Do you want people to have bike areas? Trails is the other thing that Complete Streets is including. Is there any way to tie us in? We have the rail trail and there's an Empire State Trail, and there are there trails in Woodstock, and is there a way to tie them to other trails? So trails is another area of interest in Complete Streets. And there may be zoning things, and there, you know, somebody maybe doesn't want people walking across their property, but if they had some incentive to allow that to be part of a trail, maybe they would. And there are things like, if you're on 375, if you rode a bike on 375, you'd be afraid of losing your life. Wouldn't it be nice if, and of course that's a state road, we all know, but wouldn't it be nice if 375 did have a bike way, because you could get maybe from Woodstock over to the rail trail. Anyways, stuff like that. So I could invite them anytime they can come, or did you still want to see their documentation first?
No, you can invite them. I just, if you could get them to send something in advance, it would be good. But if they can't do it, they can't do it.
Okay. Okay. I will ask about that. Okay, sounds good. So we're okay at the next meeting then. I'll have to send a copy of the law. Send. Okay, so I will resend the proposed law copy, and we'll plan for our next meeting to look at that. And I'll give you any updates I have on the other areas. That was the main thing I had wanted to do in this call, was talk about what we do next. And we've really done that. Or is there anything else on people's minds? I'm going to stop sharing.
Yes, Laura.
Yes. Okay.
On that list, can we consider a review of the sign laws in Woodstock?
Yes, we could.
I mean, it's not quite as sexy as a lot of the other things we're talking about, but we've been on the zoning board coming across commercial sign issues.
Mm-hmm.
Like what?
Well, there's only a certain size sign that's allowed. And what I'm going to do, if I can I share my screen, Laura?
Yeah, well, I think you can.
All right, let me try.
Okay, and if you can't, I'll see if I can give you, I'm the host, I'm the hostess here. So
Let me see.
if you, oh, look at that, there you go.
That sign is certainly larger than 25 square feet.
Yeah, and it's larger than 10 square feet, which is what I thought was the current zoning law.
Yeah, so I mean, that's an example of the zoning law. I mean, if you look further on this complex, there's a temporary sign. Those are not allowed by the zoning law.
Okay.
All right, we took a look at that. There's a 75-inch TV on the side of the building. That's an electronic sign. That's not allowed. Here we have temporary signs, temporary banner signs. Those are not allowed. I mean, just in a couple examples, I don't mean to pick on this complex in particular, but it is an example of a situation where the zoning law is not being followed for signage.
Well, so
And
is
there's
that,
another thing, like, for example, sandwich boards aren't allowed, and there must be 25 of them in town.
well, sure. So here's the question then. Is it your thought that the zoning laws are outdated regarding signs and we should relax them so these things are not illegal? Or is your problem that we're not an enforcement problem? Do you think that the laws are good, but that they're not being enforced?
I think maybe it's a mixture of both. I mean, we could say that the zoning law regarding signs is fine as it is, but I just think as the community, if we see that many business owners are using sandwich boards for signage,
Right.
maybe they feel that sandwich boards should be okay because they're bringing traffic to them. And maybe we could say, all right, a sandwich board is okay as long as it's not in the sidewalk and it's taken in every night.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not quite sure of that. But
Are you sure sandwich boards are not allowed? I've produced many concerts in Woodstock, and I remember, like at the community center, we always put I haven't done it in a while, but when I did it, I put a sandwich board outside the community center saying tonight, auction, or tonight concert, or tonight.
yeah, well, what I would imagine is that the sandwich board falls under the temporary sign prohibition, and temporary signs are allowed for community events or firehouse or the something like that, political signs, as long as they're not up for more than 30 days.
Okay, so you're talking about signs that are permanent sandwich boards associated with certain buildings or businesses.
No, I think if you were to drive through Woodstock, there are a lot of sandwich boards, that are in town.
Yes, there are.
And I'm not necessarily for them or against them, but it's just an example of our zoning law that we have that is how would we enforce something like that? So I don't have a particular for or against on anything on this. It's just the question is, should as we're revisiting the zoning law, should we revisit the signage law?
Well, maybe you could go through, print.
Why don't I do that? Because I know the people on the zoning board have asked me, as a representative to this group, how about I go back to the zoning board and say, hey, what items do you think in the zoning law could use revision, and then bring this back to you, or bring this back to this group as an item?
Because the downtown businesses now are much more organized than they used to be. And they're if they get wind that we're going to ban some of these sign methods they've developed, they'll come roaring into us. But so we should be very careful. I'm for proper control of signs, believe me.
As you say that, Ed, I think I don't, when you say that group, I would be happy to talk to that group and see what it is that they find is necessary that's not provided for in the zoning law. And then we can take it from there, because like I said, I'm not for this, I'm not against it. What I think my biggest problem is that we have a law that is not being enforced and it's haphazard. And if someone put up a 6-foot fence in their front yard, they'd be cited and it'd be down in a heartbeat. And here we have the Bearsville Theater with a 600 square foot sign, and no problem.
Yeah.
Well, that can be remedied.
Understood. And I'm not against this sign, because I'm on the zoning board. They could come to us and say, hey, where it is part of the architecture of the building and it's not in public. But still, it's, an example of it's hard to have a law and enforce some parts of it, but not enforce others.
Well, it seems to me, and one thing for the side of the building is, And if we did a deep dive in this, which we're talking about going to do a deep dive in this in the future, but one thought I might offer is when you have a sign on the side, if someone puts something, if the side of their building, if they decided to paint their establishment name on the side of the building, to me, that's not the same as having some big glaring sign. Like a TV, it doesn't fit with the character of Woodstock, I think, when they have a big TV out there. It doesn't bother me, the Bearsville, that's just the two color, right? You have the color of the side of the building.
Yeah,
And then the color.
right. Understood. Yeah.
It doesn't bother me, but then we ought to have some, like Colony wanted to, I think the side of the building for Colony, they wanted to put the word Colony on the side of the building. Well, you're not allowed to, that's a sign. So maybe the side of your building is not really a sign, but what we can, when we do a deep dive, and like Ed said, Michael, if you can go back to the ZBA and say, well, what changes are they hoping we're going to make? Because and to me, making sandwich boards legal just because people are doing it all the time, to me is, in my opinion, is not the best thing, because if people are tripping over sandwich boards, it's like a safety hazard.
Understood.
So yeah, so some things,
I'm not using anything as a particular example, or I don't have a pet peeve about anything. They're when we're asked, if someone comes before us and asks for a variance, for a sign variance, and we say no, and they point to everything that's on here, we're being arbitrary and capricious, which is not what it should be.
Except for the fact that you're not, from the standpoint is that you didn't allow those things. The town is being arbitrary and capricious in that the town has not cracked down on those violations, but you're not being arbitrary and capricious, because if you're consistent with other decisions you've made, then that's not arbitrary and capricious.
Yeah.
But I understand your point is there's a problem. It would be good to take a look and then make and see what needs to be revised based on what the reality that's happening, and do things fit in the character of Woodstock or don't they? And if they fit in the character of Woodstock and we say, hey, these things are okay, we could adjust the law. And if they don't fit in the character of Woodstock and they're safety hazards, then
I'll have them. I'll take it back to the zoning board and see what they think might be tweaks to that part of the law and bring it back to us.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah. Because I kind of like that. The Bearsville picture you showed is kind of like, I'd hate to go say, hey, you got to go paint over that because the law says you can't, when it's a really cute logo, I think. So,
well, yeah, but agreed, then they should seek a variance.
They sure should.
And they should seek a variance for a 600 square foot sign.
And if you grant that, then right. Then you got to grant to everybody else who wants a 600 square foot. Yeah. Well, so it has to be well thought through.
Yeah.
So cool. But thank you for bringing that up. I'm sorry, Ed, go ahead.
No, it's no big deal. I just remember chairing the committee a long time ago that wrote this sign law. And it was very, very difficult and contentious back then when I chaired the committee to write this sign law. It was full of combat. So anything to do with signs is going to have contention. Because if you threaten to open it up, they'll say, yes, I want to have helium balloons,
Right.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll mention that back to the zoning board, and we'll see where it goes from there, because they asked me to ask you, us as a group about it.
Well, we can come up with some sane changes if we have suggestions from the ZBA. That will be good.
Okay.
Cool. Excellent idea. So thank you for bringing that up.
Yep.
Anything else anybody wanted to cover before we adjourn? So I will fish out that NCLI law. I'll send it around. And I guess we don't have any, because sometimes when we have a holiday, that's what happened in the first meeting in October. But so we should meet the 8th and the 22nd, and I don't know if either of those is a national holiday. So hopefully we don't have any issue with proceeding as planned. So our next meeting will be November 8th, and I'll get this law around so people can take a look at it and we can have a discussion at the next meeting. So cool. Anything else before we close? Thank you to each of you for joining, and I'm glad that we're finding a way to proceed. I think it's a healthy thing. So good. We'll talk in a couple of weeks. Thank you, everybody.
All right.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Adios.